We got a few things to talk about today. We got Holland and Phillips excited about Vic Fangio. We got two GMs talking about the fifth-year option with Tua and the combines this week. And if you think there's tampering before free agency, you got another thing coming. What is up, Finn fans? Yes, we got a few things to talk about in today's video. A few things to talk about. But before we jump into all that good stuff, yesterday's video was released on YouTube. It was also released on the podcast. I told you guys I was going to be more up to date and more diligent with putting these episodes on the podcast. So yesterday's video was also on YouTube, but also it was on my Spotify podcast. So if you're driving and you want to listen to it and you have Spotify, new episode was up yesterday. And this episode is also up at the same time this is released on YouTube. Now, the podcast is linked in the description. It literally says podcast, and then you click on it. It takes you to Spotify. You can follow it there for the people that want to listen to this while they're driving, while they're working out, while they're doing all that stuff. I appreciate you listening to my voice. Hopefully it's soothing, and run faster, sweat harder, burn those gluteus maximuses. But let's jump into it. We're going to start with the last thing I said, which is the combine. Now the combine starts yesterday, the 27th. The combine is from the February 27th to March 6th. So it's about a full week. Yeah, yesterday it started. A full week of combine-ish stuff. And also, to give you a breakdown, on March 2nd, the defensive line and the linebackers go. March 3rd, it's the defensive backs, the punt, kick, and special teamers. March 4th is the quarterback, wide receivers, and tight ends. And March 5th is the offensive line and running backs. And what do they do? What do they perform? 40-yard dashes, bench press, vertical jump, broad jump, 3-cone drill, 20-yard shuttle, 60-yard shuttle. Then there's on-the-field stuff. There's players that won't be throwing. There's players that won't be running. There's players that this, that, and all that other stuff. I think Bryce Young won't be throwing from here and there, but that's not the point of me bringing up the combine. Because, first off, it's the underwear bowl. Everyone sits there, they watch it. They are like, ooh, look how good he did. And then all of a sudden he goes into the NFL. He doesn't do as well because he has to put pads on. He has defenders in his face. It's a whole different world. The whole point of me bringing that up, and it kind of coincides with today's episode, and some of the things I want to talk about. You talk about tampering and how the 13th and the 14th of March is the tampering period. And then the 15th is when free agency starts at 4 o'clock. And when, you could sign the players. They're tampering now. Again, it started on the 27th, the combine, and it goes to the 6th. But they don't start looking at players running the 40 and stuff until the 2nd, which is tomorrow. So for the past 2 to 3 days, what do you think they're doing? Obviously, they're meeting with the prospects, and that's where they interview them. They ask them weird question like, is your mom a prostitute? I think that's what they asked Des Bryant. One of the Dolphins GMs asked him, is your mom a prostitute or something like that? I was like, what? But they're talking. Derek Carr is there right now meeting with a bunch of teams. There's a little chit chat here and there between GMs. Hey, I'm kind of interested in Jalen Ramsey. How much would that cost for us to get Jalen Ramsey? Well, I kind of want 2 first. You ain't getting 2 first for Jalen Ramsey. You see his contract? You see his age? How much do you really like? There's a lot of tampering, not only between GM to GM, but also from agent to GM. Mike Gesicki might be talking to the Packers GM. Mike Gesicki's agents might be doing their thing there, because these agents don't only represent these NFL players pending free agents, they also now represent the prospects. So a GM might be talking to someone about Bryce Young, and Bryce Young's agent might also represent a pending free agent, and they kind of slip in a little conversation. Okay, yeah. Well, how much am I looking at if so-and-so is coming to you? So there's a lot of backdoor stuff happening, a lot of sketchy stuff. So you're going to get a lot of rumors this week, and I'll talk about them. If they're crazy rumors, I'm going to talk about them. But let's jump into some Miami Dolphins stuff. Let's talk about what Javon Holland and Jalen Phillips had to say about Vic Fangio. So this is what Javon Holland had to say. He said, "I'm really excited. Coach Vic is here. He's got a huge rep sheet of success playing, and he's got a huge rep sheet of successful players. Wow, my brain, in his system, and I'm just hoping that I can fit that mold." Javon, you fit that mold. Trust me on that. He loves to use his safeties. I can't get ahead of myself. The season just ended. It takes some time, but I'm definitely excited for sure. I'm just excited to get into the playbook and see what it is. Again, now they're going with a whole new scheme-ish from what Josh Boyer and Brian Flores were running. This is going to be a different scheme with Vic Fangio. Again, I talked about that in a previous video. Jalen Phillips even added, I know he's a coach that's been around for a long time. He's been around for a while. He's extremely serious about football, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure we're in the best possible position possible. The man had a year off to sit around and scheme. Like, are you kidding me? Javon Holland added that I ran that in college, essentially Vic Fangio's scheme, which is, the safety. And I do actually prefer that to high safeties. You can rotate down and things like that, disguise and whatnot. I'm just excited to get into that playbook. It looks like a fun defense to play in. Justin Simmons looks like he had a great time out there in Denver playing in it, and so I feel I can fit that role. Just find out they're playing. Just have fun out there playing, not thinking, just going with the flow. And then Phillips also adds that I've talked to him a few times, meaning Vic Fangio, but he hasn't really been able to talk ball. I'm interested to see what he's going to bring. I trust him. I trust Coach McDaniel, and I trust Bradley, and I trust the rest of our defense. It is going to be very interesting what Vic Fangio can do with these guys. And the rotation and how he uses his safeties and all that stuff is going to be incredibly interesting, and I really can't wait. Again, he runs that 2 high safety, but it's not a cover 2 in the aspect that they're so far back. They have to play kind of mid. And I talked about this, like I said, in a previous video where I broke down his defense, but he wants the safeties to be able to be athletic enough to be able to play the run, but also possibly play the pass. So they're 2 high safeties and a 2 safety cover, but they're kind of midfield instead of high or in the box. And we saw with Javon Holland, especially, I think it was the second Bills game last year, that the Dolphins started using him as a spy, and they used him in the same aspect that Fangio is going to use him, where Javon Holland was kind of middle of the field-ish, right? He wasn't high, but he wasn't in the box. He was middle of the field, and he was playing his coverage duties. And then every time Josh Allen would break as if he was going to run, boom, you would see Javon Holland take off and make the tackle. And then all of a sudden, Josh Allen wasn't able to scramble a lot because Javon Holland was playing that scheme. I'm telling you, he's going to have a fantastic... I know he said don't get ahead of yourself, and I don't like getting ahead of myself, but he's going to have a fantastic year under Vic Fangio. Look at all the safeties that Vic Fangio had and what he did with them. And then again, there's the Poyer situation, and then they might have 3 good safeties, and Holland, Jones, and Poyer, and it's going to be fantastic, especially if we're going to bring in Poyer and Jalen Ramsey. I'm so excited. I want to see this defense match the top, the number 6 offense that we had last year. That is with the 22nd ranked offensive line and a not so great rush offense, and I think 24th ranked. If they can get that sucker running and purring like a nice Ferrari, it's gonna be fun. So that is what they had to say, and then also there's the 5th year option that's looming with Tua Tagovailoa. They have May 2nd. May 2nd is the deadline if they want to 5th year option Tua Tagovailoa. It'll be $23.1 million for his 5th year option. It is fully guaranteed. I talked about that in a previous video, again, where I broke down if I would pick up Tua Tagovailoa's 5th year option. You can go check that out. Just type in 5th year option on the homepage and you can find it there. It worries me that now it's different, and it's good that it's different. It's very player friendly. It's fully guaranteed. If Tua gets hurt, if Tua has a bad year, if Tua has a down year, whatever, if the Dolphins pick up that 5th-year option on May 2nd, Tua Tagovailoa in 2024 is guaranteed a full $23.1 million, right? So there's the split. There's some people who are like, give him the 5th-year option because $23.1 million is a great number, especially nowadays for quarterbacks. And if Tua balls out, it's an even better option. So you're not paying him $45 to $50 million that year. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where people are like, don't do it in case of injury. But if he does ball out, you give him the contract that he deserves, right? So this is Barry Jackson's article, and they talked to 2 separate GMs. And like he said, one who cited one reason, there's just too much of an injury risk. The other said he would exercise the option for the reason he showed enough last season that you would want to see this play out. If you don't pick it up and he has a really good year next year, you're going to have to pay him a lot more in 2024. I think it's worth the risk. Tua did have a good year last year. It's obvious. He played 12 games and he was ranked 12th in passing yards, and he was ranked whatever in touchdowns and number 1 in passer rating, and he had top 10, top 15 numbers playing 12 games, missed 5 games. He had a very good year last year. So that makes sense, right? Both GMs asked their names not to be used, obviously, because all of that situation is always the thing. And don't use my name. Please don't use my name. And also they talk about in the article the fact that in 2024, say they don't pick up the 5th-year option, there isn't a lot of big name quarterbacks out there that could come in and be an instant success, right? Because you have Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. They're going to get the contract extensions. The Packers aren't going to let go of Jordan Love. Then you have Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Jameis Winston, Mitch Trubisky, all of those guys who would become free agents. And those names that I said, you're not like, please bring them to Miami to be our starting quarterback in 2024 if Tua can't stay healthy next year. And then, there's the possibility, like they said in the article, of like a player becoming available, kind of like a Derek Carr type situation. And then he also says, though, Southern California quarterback and Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams, projected to be high in 2024, told People Magazine the Dolphins are probably his number 1. But again, the possibility of getting the number 1 pick for 2024 is that's the Dolphins, right? It's very rare for them to be so bad that they get the top 5 pick. I think it happened once, twice, 3 times a lady. And the only reason they had it the year that they traded back from 3rd is because of the Houston Texans trade. The Dolphins have been very mid. We made the playoffs last year, but they've been very mid. Drafting in the teens, early 20s, very mid. So, those are the options, and, obviously, everyone's torn on it. Will they do it? Won't they do it? May 2nd is going to be a very interesting thing to talk about. But in this article, they also, there's the this and that type situation. And the reps for several Dolphin free agents are awaiting offers and clarity from the team. Team executives Chris Greer and Brandon Shore are expected to meet with various agents during the NFL Combine this week. And that's why I kind of brought that first part of the video in there. He says, because the Dolphins get far more cap relief by cutting Brandon Jones with a June 1st designation than otherwise, Miami likely will be in the situation where it uses nearly all of its cap space in the first few weeks of free agency, then gets another $13 million in cap relief on June 1st. So essentially what he's saying is the Dolphins probably going to go crazy if they do. Then all of a sudden, when you go looking at the back end of it, or when you're looking at paying your draft picks, moving on from Brandon Jones will get you $13.6 million in cap space. The Dolphins are $16.4 million over the cap and will need to restructure several contracts and make several cuts to create enough room to sign 2 running backs. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson are outside options. A backup quarterback, a veteran tight end to replace Mike Gesicki, 3 veteran backup offensive linemen, including at least one who could challenge the start right tackle position. 2 linebackers, Landon Roberts and Duke Riley, are outside options. Starting caliber cornerback, There's a few, and Eric Rowe, a different third safety. Jordan Boyer. Jones has 18.3, and then he talks about Brandon Jones there. Even if Miami releases Jones in mid-March, designated him for a post-June first cut, that cap relief cannot be used until June, but Jones' release at some point is expected. He indicated Saturday that he's not physically able to play. But again, I talked about that. He never said he's going to retire. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Miami Dolphins free agency will pan out and all that stuff. I made a video, again, I make videos covering all the aspects of the Miami Dolphins on how they can clear the cap space up. They can go from negative 16 million to 50 million. They can get a lot of money to do what they need to do. Cap space is a real thing because obviously some of the situations when it comes to, restructuring Tyreek Hill, restructuring Xavier Howard, Bradley Chubb, Teron Armstead, all that stuff, you're kind of just kicking the can down the road. But the Dolphins are in a situation right now that they are very close to being very competitive. They were very competitive last year. So this is a situation where you kind of want to, do you want to put yourself in a Rams situation where you win a Super Bowl because you threw everything at the wall, but now you're kind of screwed because the Rams have no draft picks and they have no cap space, and your head coach, he has 1 foot out the door, and then there's a lot of situations where, that happens. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Dolphins do. I still think that you can go out and get free agents, and you can go out and make moves and make this team better and not break the bank. So it's going to be very interesting. Tomorrow is the 1st of March, guys. And in 2 weeks is the start of free agency. And like I said, on the 13th and 14th, you got, did I say tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. I'm like, what day is it? And then you got the 13th to 14th is tampering, or is it the 12th, 13th? You know what I'm talking about. But that's what I got for you guys today. Comment below. Let me know what you think. Picking up the 5th-year option. I kind of already have an idea of what you guys think about picking up the 5th-year option because you commented on the previous video. What's your thoughts on the combine? Who are you interested to seeing? It's going to be I'm going to cover the combine. I'm going to talk about, each day's top performer and stuff like that, and kind of talk about who the Dolphins should be looking at, with that 2nd round pick. We have a 2nd, 2/3, a 6th, and a 7th. But that could change as well if they trade Cedric Wilson, if they trade any of the players, Jerome Baker, anyone that the Dolphins are like, hey, you don't really fit the scheme anymore. We can really move on from you. They can pick up more of that draft picks and stuff like that. So it's going to be very, very interesting this week, these next 2 weeks, and then the draft, and then you start getting, there's no off season in the NFL. There really isn't an off season in the NFL, and I'm happy with that. I love talking about this stuff and all that stuff. Speaking of that, again, I want to thank you guys for helping us break 40K. It's great. If you haven't watched the live stream on Sunday, go watch it. I think Friday I'm going to be picking the 2 winners for the giveaway. Again, the first winner in the drawing, and I'm going to do a video so you can see who they are. The first winner in the drawing is going to have his option of a jersey or a backroom collection artwork, and then the second one gets the other option. So I'm pretty sure the first person is going to want the jersey and the second person is going to want the backroom collection. But it's going to be fun. I will see you guys in the next one. Share the video, subscribe, hit that thumbs up, let me know. But other than that, like usual, stay classy. Events up.